What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Grab Your Gear podcast, where we speak to people who get up and work hard every single day. Merit shop workers, trades workers, anybody who works hard. If you love this country and work hard, this show and this channel is for you. So be sure to subscribe, see all our content. Joining me today, as always, our co-host and beloved founder, editor-in-chief at the Ohio Press Network, Jack Windsor. And Jack, we have a lot to discuss today.
We do.
The first bit of information, I know you've been eager to talk about this. We have two very important confirmation votes coming up that are going to affect the national scope and the direction of this administration in many ways. So without really much further ado, I'll throw it to you. Opening thoughts and just anything you want to touch on with the confirmation vote of Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. today.
Yes. So first of all, Tulsi Gabbard is the nominee selected by Trump to be the director of national intelligence. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., of course, Department of Health and Human Services. Now, Gabbard's cloture happened previously, and you go, what does that mean? It's just a fancy word to say that they can no longer debate. So my understanding is 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So in just about 15 minutes, she will be voted on the floor. And there was a cloture vote on Robert F. Kennedy Jr., same thing, debate ends. And what that does, though, it starts, without getting too far in the weeds, once debate stops, once it's ended, there is a time during which you cannot vote. So they literally have a clock. And they're doing everything they can to expedite. So my understanding is that at 1 a.m., that clock expires. And so then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be eligible to be voted in as Director of Department of Health and Human Services, or Secretary. And I'll tell you this, both of those folks, Tulsi Gabbard, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., will be confirmed by the United States Senate. And you go, well, how do you know that? Because the vice president is in Europe, and the vice president is the tie-breaking vote. And if they didn't think they had the votes, Vice President J.D. Vance would not be in Europe today.
That's a very good point. I did not consider that when I saw him talking on artificial intelligence yesterday and meeting with Macron and the world leaders. So interestingly, I told you this before we recorded, Jack, but polymarket, usually the market has a good idea on what's happening, and just checked, and Tulsi Gabbard is at 100% confirmation chance, and RFK Jr. sits at 99%. So I think the markets are agreeing with your assessment there. Now, the next thing that I kind of wanted to focus on today was something last night that happened pretty late in the evening. President Trump welcomed home a prisoner from Russia who was arrested for having half an ounce of weed on him, medical weed, which honestly is a good amount of weed to be carrying with you when you're traveling, and especially going to Russia. So definitely a mistake on his end there. But I mean, he was in prison in Russia for 3.5 years. And the reason I wanted to talk about this is President Trump mentioned in his remarks to the media about this prisoner return that this could be the beginning of negotiations of a peace deal with the Russia and Ukraine war. And there, even just this morning, there was a development with the Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, saying that Ukraine would not be a part of NATO. That's not even a possibility. And so I think a couple things are developing on the scene here, Jack, but I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on whether you think this signals a little bit something more behind the scenes developing, and I guess maybe so what this also projects on the world stage, the fact that 3 weeks into Trump's presidency, we have a prisoner returned from Russia that was there for basically the entire Biden term.
Yeah, and I think, I don't remember, I think he had a 14-year sentence. He was accused of drug smuggling. And look, this isn't new. We had a female basketball star who was captive overseas for having marijuana as well. But look, when you project strength, you back up strong words with action, things happen. That's the long and short of it for me. And what's interesting is that Hamas backed off their commitment to the next phase in releasing the captives there in the Middle East. And Trump said, well, all hell's going to break loose. Get it done by Saturday or else. Now, he did kind of allude to the fact that whatever Israel wants to do, Israel can do. But I'm telling you, if you don't honor your word, all hell's going to break loose. And I suspect that we're going to see action.
Yeah. Another interesting note on that, Jack. I don't know if you saw this yesterday. The King of Jordan was in town in D.C. and Trump basically told the media, he was asked whether the U.S. like how much are they going to pay for Gaza? How's that going to work? And he said, we're not going to pay for it. We just have it. We just own it. And we kind of talked about this last week. Like I think we need to take time and kind of see how this goes and feel it out before we really say if this is going to be a great thing or not a great thing. But it seems like Trump is kind of trying to position that region by doing this to establish some level of peace, because I think he views it as basically getting Hamas out of that area and away from Israel. And we're waiting a deal from the Egyptians that they're going to propose. And I think Trump already knows what the deal is, he said. But that's just another interesting development. I think we all need to keep an eye on that, because when it comes to, world peace, that's why a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
voted for President Trump, to avoid world war. Um, I think the Russia-Ukraine war is on a good trajectory to potentially come to an end. But then the Middle East, if we can have those two fronts really, really addressed and some level of peace is established, I think that's another promise that President Trump will be able to fulfill during his presidency. So any final thoughts on the foreign policy developments there before we get into, I know what you wanted to talk about next?
Well, it's interesting. LCC came out, I think it was maybe a week and a half ago, and said that Donald Trump is going to bring about the golden age of peace in the Middle East. So I think that there is an understanding there of where this is going to lead, and I just fully expect that. One of the things, and I don't know even how to convey this simply. One of the things that Trump has been all about. I mean, you go back and you watch clips of him on late night shows in the late 80s and the 90s. He always talked about other countries paying their fair share and making sure that America was not using tax dollars to bail everyone in the world out. I think you have to look at what he's talking about in Gaza and partner it up with that long-standing mindset. And I think you're going to see some creative things there. I don't know what that is, what those things are, but frankly, I'm excited about it.
Yeah, there was actually, I'm sure you saw this image, and we'll get into the subject matter a little bit later, but there was an image of Elon Musk standing behind the Oval Office desk with his son, and it kind of was reminiscent of John F. Kennedy with John F. Kennedy Jr. underneath the same desk, actually. It's interesting to
Yeah,
note. But it kind of reminded, it made me think like, we are really in a special time in America. One of the most innovative minds in, I would say, world history
yeah.
has close access and has a good relationship, a friendship with the president, and the president is enabling him to use his talents and gifts to to shrink the size and scope of government and to expose fraud. Like, this is exactly what America is about. It's a beautiful situation, and I know the left is mad about this. Maybe we should just talk about this right now really quick to address
Yeah, let's
the
do it.
DOGE
We need to.
situation. Like, the left is losing their minds because Elon Musk is in the government and he's saying, "Hey, we shouldn't be spending all this hundreds of millions and hundreds of billions of dollars of waste on these crazy things." So, Jack, what is the problem with cutting government spending? Why does the left not think that's okay?
Well, I'm going to give you a quote from Elon Musk. I watched the prepared remarks that he delivered from the Oval Office yesterday behind the Resolute desk with Trump and his son. And he said that the people voted for major government reform, and that's what they're going to get. That's what democracy is all about. Now, I don't know if he meant to slap Democrats and progressives with that line, but all we heard leading into the election was that Trump was a threat to democracy, an existential threat to democracy. And I don't know how you can listen to, and maybe we'll pin this to the Grab Your Gear account, or I'll pin it to mine, or whatever. But I think if you have 8 minutes today, you really need to listen to Elon Musk address the press from the Oval Office yesterday. And if you walk away after watching and listening to him with anything other, here is a really bright guy who's telling you things that a fourth grader would understand. I mean, genuinely, he's talking about things like Well, we have to make sure that the loop of communication and information between the voter and the bureaucracy, that is like a loop, that it's not shielded, that it's not hidden. And voters need to understand what's going on in their bureaucracy. And oh, by the way, the bureaucracy is not the constitutionally established fourth estate of government. In fact, what they're doing really goes against all of the fundamental principles of our Constitution. And then he went into some really just outlandish things. I mean, there are people who are on the Social Security rolls that are 150 years old. There are people who get salaries of a couple $100,000, but somehow they've amassed tens and tens and millions of dollars in net worth. He's talking about when they release checks, there are checks going out of these agencies, and there's no description for where they're going and why they're going and when they'll stop. And by the way, we're spending it at $2 trillion deficit. Now, that's different than the debt. We already have an almost $37 trillion debt, and the interest on that debt that we pay is more than we pay for our national defense. And so, if you look at what he's saying and you don't walk away with the understanding that it's broken and we need to fix it, and the only way that you fix it is to right size it, and the only way that you right size it is you get inside and you find ways to close the loopholes. You find ways to take people off the rolls that are getting paid, that are 150 years old and they're dead, I promise you. And I mean, it's just real simple blocking and tackling stuff, to use a football analogy.
Yeah.
And so I'm blown away. I'm blown away by the reaction from some people. And look, shoring up fiscal responsibility, shoring up our financial future is not a Democrat or a Republican thing. It should be an American thing. It should be a common sense thing. There isn't a person that's listening to this podcast that thinks that when they bring their lunch pail home tonight, that if they have $2,000 left in the account, that they can go spend $5,000 and do that ad infinitum and just expect that shit's going to work out. That's not how the real world works.
No, it's actually kind of funny to me because like it seems like the left-wing media establishment is like non-committal in how they're reporting this. I mean, they're obviously attacking it, but it's like I think they know they've lost the trust of the mass populace, and they've also lost credibility with the majority of Americans. And Trump is his approval rating. I just saw today a poll from Trafalgar. He's at 54% approval rating, and so he's still plus 8. So they kind of have to watch how they're going to attack this in the media. You know, they can't just use the same old tactics they used for years because it doesn't work anymore. We have Elon Musk owns the biggest social media platform, I would say, in the world with the most reach and trust.
Mm-hmm.
He has the biggest account on X. So whatever they try to throw at him, it's not going to work. It's not going to fly, right? We have the ability now to see what's real. And I think they are terrified right now, which is beautiful for me. Like, I mean, this is just an amazing thing to witness, right? And even just the fact that Elon Musk and Trump are combining forces. Like, if you would have told me that 4 years ago, it's like
Right.
it's like a fantasy, right? It's coming and it's happening in front of our eyes. So this is
What a time to be
really,
alive, man. What a time to be
yeah,
alive.
seriously, it really is incredible, and it's exciting. It makes me love this country. I mean, I looked at even just the image again of Musk and Trump in the office, and in the portrait of Washington, and I was just thinking like our founding fathers would love this. Like they would be like, this is what America is all about: taking the best and brightest and combining it with somebody like Trump who has the will of the people and
Mm-hmm.
delivering a product and delivering that major reform you're talking about and shrinking government. Our founders did not want $7 trillion of spending. Are you serious? Like you
No.
said, it's just ridiculous. It's just absolutely
Well,
ridiculous.
it is ridiculous, and I know I'm going to take us long on this, but you kind of hit a passion point with me. But Elon Musk is a guy, and this is why he terrifies the left. Elon Musk is a guy who goes, okay, you think there's something wrong? Well, the only way to figure out if it's wrong is to actually dig into it and to not hold back any information. And so it's so cool when people come against him and he goes, okay, well, that's fine. We'll just mine all the information and we'll give it to you. You can decide You can decide what to do with it. And I'm telling you, if you can't see that what they're doing makes sense, like you need to detox. You need to detox. You need to get off CNN, MSNBC. You need to stop reading the New York Times. I mean, genuinely, you cannot
Yeah.
look at what this guy is doing and go, well, wait a minute. And here's the part that really is amusing to me. First, it was this guy is an unelected bureaucrat. And I go, well, if you're in Ohio and you loved Amy Acton, what are you talking about? If you're other parts of the country and you loved Anthony Fauci, I don't want to hear it. And you have a problem that he's a billionaire, talk to me about George Soros and Bill Gates. I mean, it's completely asinine. Oh, well, these kids are so young. The best tweet I saw was some guy in the liberal news media posted something about one of these people that's on part of the Doge boys, right? That's what we call him now. He's 19 years old, and this guy's kvetching like, "How's this person an expert at 19 years old?" Well, this guy posted below it, "Hey, I started a company at 19 years old. It worked out pretty well. It was Michael Dell." Listen, we don't judge people by age. We judge people by output. And by the way, that was one of the most beautiful things. If you do listen to the remarks that Musk made from the Oval Office yesterday, he said, "How do you get to prosperity? Well, you go from low and negative productivity and you shift it to higher productivity." That's what he's doing in the government. That's the definition of prosperity. I mean, I love what this guy's doing, man. I'm just, it's so cool to be alive right now.
Yeah, yeah. I think. Well, first of all, I agree with everything you just said, and just the sentiment behind it. But I think what's happening, Jack, is this federal establishment. I think whoever benefits from this mass amount of fraud that we're seeing, these hundreds of billions of taxpayer dollars, and it's kind of ironic because it's like they funnel it into causes that are like making fun of the populace, right? They're building an Anthony Fauci exhibit for $180 million. Like they're like, we're going to lie to your face and then we're going to make you pay for it. And we're going to taunt you with your own money. It's just ridiculous. But whatever people are behind things like that, I don't think they ever thought that something like this was even possible, that the
No.
people could vote for, first of all, Donald Trump, who survived assassination by millimeters, that he would be president again, and that Elon Musk would combine forces of all people. Like this is a godsend. Like you can't deny this. I'm a believer, but like you cannot deny how everything has lined up right now. That this is providence. It just is. Like
Yeah.
everything that's happening is providence, and the left is they're losing the war. They're losing the culture war. I mean, how many ads did you see? I saw one ad during the Super Bowl that was woke. I mean, it was way less than it has been. Okay, like
Yep.
the culture is shifting right now, and so the message for us, like us, people who are watching this podcast, is like keep the pedal to the metal, man. Like keep
Yes.
voting for who you're voting for. Keep staying tuned in politics. Stay informed, but like we have to keep pushing because we're winning this war, and I think, we can't just let off because we're seeing some momentum. Like we have to keep pushing. So it's
100%. I mean,
exciting.
it is exciting. You don't build big companies by, going slack when things get exciting and you're in a growth mode. Love him or hate him. Listen, I'm happy Ohio State won the national championship. One of the greatest coaches of all time was Nick Saban. And Nick Saban was great because once you were down, it was boot to the neck, man. They were relentless. That's how you have to be. You cannot let up. Pedal to the metal all the way, all the way. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to think about this. There's so much to walk back, and I'm sure we'll talk about this next. But this wokeism has infiltrated education, federal government, state governments, entertainment, sports, medicine, everywhere. And so, like, you can't just, take off the top of the weed. You gotta get down in the root, and you gotta pull that whole sucker out. And this has to happen institutionally all over our country.
And it's just I have a feeling like it's just bubbling, almost like overflowing with joy because like all these evil people who tried to bring lawfare against Donald Trump, and they're going to want to bring lawfare against Elon Musk. Guess what?
Hmm.
We have the pardon power now. Trump has the pardon power. So whatever you want to pull, it's not going to work. And I don't want to. I wish we didn't have to go to that extent to pardon
Right?
Elon Musk or something. But you know how these people are, man. They literally
They're
cooked up
evil.
charges. I mean,
They're
it was
evil.
pure evil. It really was. So anyway, we could go about this all day, but just to wrap
Yeah.
up today's show, uh, I wanted to touch on. Well, I know you wanted to touch on. You have, I think, a little bit more of a grasp on the story than I do. But the Cleveland Clinic and kind of some of the things that are coming down, it reminds me of, some of these judges who are defying Donald Trump's executive orders. And I
Yeah.
think we're seeing some of that from private companies as well. So I'll just throw this to you, Jack, and kind of what's going on with that whole situation at Cleveland Clinic.
Yeah, so I got a text this morning from a contact, and Fox News wrote a story on this. The Windsor Report, which is my daily drive time radio show, you can link up with that at 989theanswer.com or just search up the Windsor Report everywhere you get your podcast. But we're going to have this gentleman on, and in the next day or two. His name is Will Hild, and he is responsible for a campaign called Cleveland Clinic Exposed. Obviously, the Cleveland Clinic is one of the most renowned healthcare facilities in the entire world. And, well, they used to be. Will is claiming that publicly and proudly, the Cleveland Clinic performs child sex changes. Of course, they prioritize care based on skin color, and they're pushing the trans propaganda into kids' minds, sometimes going around parents and having private conversations with kids. They're spending millions of dollars on climate activism. And look, politics aside, if I go to the Cleveland Clinic, I want them to look at me and give me good care. Not because my skin is white or black or pink or purple, not because I'm a Republican or a Democrat, because I have a human body and biology and chemistry can be understood, and I've got an ailment and you need to fix it. These guys, and they're not alone, these guys have gone off the reservation. And so if you watch the Cleveland Cavaliers game tonight, I think this Cleveland Clinic Exposed is actually going to hit TV for the first time tonight. We're going to track it. We're going to follow it because, of course, here in Ohio, our governor vetoed what was numbered House Bill 68, which kept boys out of women's sports in private spaces. It also banned puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and the cutting off of body parts of minors. And DeWine vetoed that bill. Now, the General Assembly had enough votes to override it. So House Bill 68 was enrolled and it was engrossed, and then it was challenged in court, and the judge said, no, this is constitutional. So there's kind of this double whammy here because Trump has already said, look, we're not doing this crap. And in Ohio, the elected officials, the democracy spoke and said, we're not doing this stuff. So if Cleveland Clinic is doing this stuff, we're going to find it out, and we're going to report it, and we're going to hope that it gets addressed on every level.
Yeah, I think history is not going to look too fondly upon those who pushed ideas like gender affirming care and child sex transitions. Even some of the more progressive countries in the EU, we are seeing banning these therapies as we speak. And I think it says a lot about the fact that in the US, we still have some of these things available, at least until President Trump signed that order. And yeah, it just, we have the private sector trying to defy some of these things, but also, judges and lawfare coming against the president. So we'll keep you all posted on that. As always, follow us on X at Grab Your Gear and at OPN, Ohio Press Network, actually at Ohio Press on X and the OhioPressNetwork.com. Follow Jack on Twitter or X as well. I keep saying Twitter for all these years later at Jack Windsor, one word. And thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you all on Wednesday next week. Take care.